Welcome to Freya's Fairy Tales, where we believe fairy tales are both stories we enjoyed as children and something that we can achieve ourselves. Each week, we will talk to authors about their favorite fairy tales when they were kids, and their adventure to holding their very own fairy tale in their hands. At the end of each episode, we will finish off with a fairy tale or short story read as close to the original author's version as possible. I am your host, Freya Victoria. I'm an audiobook narrator that loves reading fairy tales, novels, and bringing stories to life through narration. I'm also fascinated by talking to authors and learning about their why and how for creating their stories. We've included all of the links for today's author and our show in the show notes. Be sure to check out our website and sign up for our newsletter for the latest on the podcast. Today is part 2 of 2, where we are talking to Laura John about her novels. After today, you will have heard about starting your writing career as an adult, writing to help your mental health, letting your characters do the talking, getting your books in audio, navigating your career after chaos, finding the software that works best for you, the importance of building a community, and revealing details in your story when it's necessary for the story. Summer dreams. Age is just a number. Or is it? Jax. Growing up, I had it all. I never had to want for anything. Everything was great, and I had a family who cared. But getting tangled up with the wrong crowd ruined that. For years, I lived in addiction, battling the constant need for my next hit and doing shady things. Someone saw more than that wasted addict and helped me get my life back together. With dedication and sheer hard work, I'm finally in a good place. At 40, I own a bar. My bar and my employees are what keep me focused. I let nothing come between me and what I treasure. Until a small man with light and sass threatens everything I believe. When Kev comes into the picture, though, I realize sometimes addiction and obsession are one and the same. He works his way into the very fiber of my being, burrows in my soul. I'm starting to feel things I thought I had buried years ago coming back to the surface. I want him, but he's 21 years younger than me, and everything I'm not. Kevin. My plans are set. The moment I turn 18, I'm off to see anything outside this small NC town. I'd escape the sleepy closed minds and search for acceptance and love elsewhere. Funny thing about declaring plans. Sometimes the universe has other ideas. Despite myself, I find love, support, and even a family amid the small-town community. Finding my forever family, I realized I can't leave. They're helping me grow and be the person I want to be. Growing my wings, I find Jax. Grumpy, no-nonsense silver fox bar owner. He is my opposite. Cold, brooding, and distant. But something about him draws me in. Unfortunately, he wants nothing to do with me because of my age. Or maybe because our courtship started with a lie. Once he finally lets his guard down and pulls his head out of his ass, we start to explore our relationship. Just as everything starts leading in the direction we both want, our fresh romance is turned on its head. Can I keep Jax beside me? Or are we bound to break apart? See, I'm like, so because I do so much royalty share audiobooks, I'm kind of like a few of the authors that I've gotten a good relationship with. I'm like, I'm going to use you, like I'm doing your books for nothing up
100%.
front. So like, if you're willing to and have the time to, would you please also help me? Like,
Well, and that's really similar with my relationship with my sensitivity reader, like for my romances. He has done all of my sensitivity reading for free.
mhm.
And I know that that's not how most people do it. He's just been super amazing. And this year he has decided, like he's right now indie published with like an indie publishing house, but he
Mhm.
is going to be starting to do like self-publishing, which I'm so excited for him. So he's going to be self-publishing some of his own books, and but he was like, "How do I format?" And I was like, "I've got you. I will format for you for free."
Yeah,
Like,
that's the next thing. So one of my authors, I'm pretty sure I haven't actually asked her. I'm pretty sure she just uses Pro Writing Aid. I don't think she pays an editor. I'm not 100% on that though. But like she's learned how to like do formatting and stuff like that. I'm like, I have a Mac, so I can do Vellum. Like I know that's a thing, but also like I have to learn how to use it.
I would, as someone who currently uses Atticus, I would highly recommend Vellum. I like Atticus. I do like Atticus, but I find
I've heard
Atticus
it's a little beta,
it's a
like it's
little
not
glitchy
quite developed
sometimes.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah. I got it for a great price. Because that was the reason that I was like going between the two, because I also have a Mac. So I was like, I can do Vellum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Vellum is like double the price of Atticus, I think.
Mm-hmm. But
And
realistically, though, for someone who's putting out as many books as you are, you're not paying for it for every single book. So-
no. But so my Love in Sienna, Monster in the Shadows, and my Sentinel Protection duology, all of those books were edited by a friend of mine. And like obviously I paid for her editing, but then she kind of like threw in formatting for me for free,
Okay.
like just kind of like in with my like price. And
Mm-hmm.
so she formatted all of my books and she used Vellum, and they're also gorgeous and also amazing. But then she had to, for physical health and mental health reasons, she had to take a step back from editing. So I found a new
Mm-hmm.
editor. And then that's when I started doing my own formatting. I also think I did a great job. I'm actually really happy with my Sultry Summer series formatting. I think it's super cute. But Atticus likes to give me a headache a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And
See, I don't have time for headaches. I need the one that's like well developed. Well, plus, me and my husband are both writing. So, like,
yeah,
Pro Writing Aid, I paid for the lifetime membership, but like, on our
yeah,
taxes, we're going to split that cost because
absolutely.
I downloaded it onto his computer and it is on my computer. They do
Right?
not. As long as it has the same login, we're in the same household. That is fine with me.
Well,
Like, if they ask questions, I'll just lie. Like, let's be
well,
real.
no, I mean it's accurate though.
Yeah, same
Um,
household. He just has my login. Actually, I use the web version. He has the downloaded version. But
yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, if somebody like didn't have the money for Vellum,
mhm.
excuse me, sorry. I do recommend Atticus. It is decent, and you just have to mess around with it a bit more. As like, I mean, I'm now books done on it, 5 books if we include JP's, done on it. Um, so I am figuring it out now. And
Mhm.
it's not quite as like, I've just heard Vellum is a little bit more user friendly.
Easier. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also for sure do more things on Vellum. Like you can insert like the fonts that you have paid for, you can like put those into Vellum and use it like in the document. Whereas like Atticus, you have to like insert images. Like if you're gonna use a personal like a font that you paid
Mhm.
for.
Yeah.
So there's
Oh,
just
that
like
makes sense. I can quite easily tell which ones have been formatted which ways based on how my PDFs copy over into Word or not.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
I've definitely had some that Word was like, we don't know what these are words are. We don't know what these words are. These aren't words. Like, what are
Yeah,
words?
yeah, exactly. And it's because it's an image, probably.
Yeah, I don't yeah, I have one so typically in my narrating process mostly I get PDFs from authors. So I'll take the PDF and convert it to a Word so that I
Right.
can get the word counts for each chapter so I know like how many chapters I need to narrate each day to finish on time. And
That's
there's
so
like
smart.
one author I've narrated for that I did that conversion thing, and occasionally there's like a couple words that get like changed or whatever, but the word count's going to be mostly accurate. One author I narrate for, it completely changes all of her words. None of her words are actual words anymore. It like puts
Oh,
random letters, and I'm like, I have no. So she has to provide me the word counts for her chapters because I'm like, It doesn't work. I've tried converting it like 5 different ways and it just doesn't reckon. Like, I'm like, here's screenshots of like the random gibberish I'm getting. Like, these
See,
are not words.
yeah, no, that's crazy. Yeah, my new editing team, they because I use Word usually to write in.
Hmm.
But then also like my alphas, we usually use Google Docs to kind of communicate back and forth, like
Hmm.
notes and stuff. But my new editing team, they use Word. But it's kind of great because then I have like at the end of everything, I have a really clean Word document, and then I just upload it into Atticus, and it's great.
Hmm.
And, but then also, if someone like you needs a Word document, I'm like, "I got you."
Yeah.
Here's a clean Word document.
Yeah, I do. Both me and my husband write in Google Docs so that we can do whatever, but the version that the other people are commenting on and stuff is a like copied version of.
Yes.
It's like they're not in my actual version.
No.
Plus, I have them set up on commenting only, not editing rights. So,
Right. Yeah.
so what is the biggest piece of advice? I should say, I'm going to start doing what is the worst piece of advice you've gotten and the best piece of
Ooh.
advice you've gotten?
Oh, goodness, that's tricky. I think the best piece of advice I've gotten was to make sure, um like, first of all, like, that you have good editing, but, to make sure you build a community, to have people that you can connect with, that you can soundboard off of, that,
Mhm.
are in similar processes of life, and I know that's not always the easiest thing to do, and I have, worked my way through multiple different, like, groups of people, because I
Mhm.
feel like sometimes as you grow, you'll grow in different directions, and that's
Mhm.
okay. That's nothing to do that's not saying we had a fallout, that's not saying we're not friends anymore, it's just saying we moved in different directions,
Mhm.
and, life happens.
Yeah.
And, but having people you can connect with and, like, share this journey with, I think is really important, and it's been really good for my mental health. Oh, I
Mhm.
stuttered there. Um, but and then I think the worst piece of advice I've been given is oh, I don't know, like, I don't necessarily know what, like, bad advice I've been given. Oh, that's a tricky one.
Oh.
Um, I mean, I think the worst piece of advice I've been given is that it costs $10,000 to do an audiobook.
Yeah. Do
Because I
your
think
own research on that
yeah,
one.
but also I didn't know how to do the research on that one at the time, and, so I think that's also why it's great to have community and, like, different
Mhm.
people, like because then you can go to them. Because sometimes just Googling something doesn't necessarily give you the information that you need, especially in indie writing circles and stuff. There are
Mhm.
some great blogs that, do things, but some people still really like to gatekeep things. And so,
I think
um,
TikTok has been, like, the most informative for me. Like, I've only been
me too.
narrating, like, a year and a half, and I stumbled into it because I was searching for ways to make money from home instead of, sitting on my
Nice.
couch reading, not making money, and, of course, like, if I'm reading all the time, I'd like to get paid for that, so I'm, like, searching for, like, I don't know, hashtag, like, work from home or something like that, and stumbled across make $1,000 an hour narrating audiobooks, and I'm like, okay, that's clearly clickbait, but then I immediately searched audiobook narrators and found Natalie Naudis and Tom Voiceover. And at the time, Paige and Ruthie and all of them were like all starting about the same time that I did. So like
Yeah.
none of us really had any advice for the others, but they both Natalie and Tom both had like, here's how to like build out your booth and get started on ACX and like all of this, like the basics of narrating that like would help. And I never am like, I'm a professional because I have like, I don't even know how many audiobooks, 60 at this time. I have no idea.
Nice.
I'm just
That's
like, I
amazing.
have a lot of audiobooks and like last year my roundup was so big, but I'm like I did when I started fiction, I did a lot of like novella length ones. So I'm like, it's a little deceptive when like most of those were like 30,000 or less words, but
But
it's a
no,
lot.
because it's still though, like, books. I mean, it's like the
Yeah.
authors who write those novella, like, length books. Because there's some authors who only write novella length books,
Mhm.
and they're putting out, like, a book a month. and their reader base loves that. And
Yeah. I
so I
think for me, so like for me and my husband's books, I'm like, it does not matter because neither one of us planned to trad pub. We're both like, we're just going to self pub and
never.
call it a day. But I'm like, for both of us, it's like, it does not matter how big your book is. As long as you have told the story that needs to be told, you haven't left things out, you haven't added a bunch of random crap in that doesn't need to be there. Like, for example, the book I'm currently writing is a Christmas based book. Like, it is going to start Christmas at Christmas time. And so, like, there's a bunch at the beginning of what you would expect from a Christmas book. Her reminiscing about Christmas's past and pulling out the decorations and decorating the house, like things you would expect in a Christmas book. And also, like, I'm pulling a lot from my life for that. Like, what did I love about Christmas growing
Right.
up? Like, so there's, two very short chapters on like them decorating the house, but it also draws into the like, how does she get a hold of this journal that's gonna, whatever.
Right.
So, it's a lot of it's there for a purpose. So I'm like, if you
Yes.
can tell your story in 30,000 words, great. If it takes 150, 200,000 words to get your story done, do that.
I am of the same like mindset. I have always said I don't want to add words just to add words.
Mhm.
I don't like adding fluff. I'm not like that's not my writing style and I don't like it. I also in what I consider I think most people fall into two categories usually in their writing. You're either
Okay.
an underwriter or an overwriter. So overwriters are the people who write so many words and then their editor like
Tolkien.
cuts a crap ton.
Tolkien.
And yeah, or like, but like you write so many words and then when it gets to editing, your editor's like, don't need this, don't need that, cut, 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 cut.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas I'm an underwriter, so I typically forget to put in like extra descriptions and this kind of stuff. So when it gets to editing process, even or like my alphas, they're like, can we have more? Can we have descriptions here? Can we
How
have
did
this?
she feel here? What did he
Yes.
do there?
So
That's
when it
from book 1 that I paused to book 2. That's book 1 was like dialogue, 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 dialogue with like
mhm,
no, like the description was so basic of like you had to know what the building looked like to make this scene make sense. Where this
yeah,
other book, it's like I'm sitting in the dust on the floor in the attic, digging through like the Christmas ornament boxes to decide do we want to do this one or that one, or like it's a lot more. I'm
right.
like, I'm like telling my husband, I'm like, I'm 1,000 words in and I haven't used any dialogue yet.
And see, like as a reader, like obviously description is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like some people over describe things.
Yeah.
I don't care that there's a tiny dent in the wall unless like,
It's
maybe
pertinent to the story.
that's important. But
Yeah.
it's like most of the time, like I don't care about that. So why are you
Yeah.
telling me about that? And as a reader, I skim those parts. And so as an author, I don't want to put a ton of that in, but then my readers are like, or editors are like, no, we definitely need that here. And I was like,
Yeah.
fine. Cause
Mine,
like,
I'm trying to like ride the line of like there needs to be enough description where you know what the character's feeling and doing and all
yeah,
of that. So like that needs to be there. But then I'm like, we've talked about the dad and how he's like his own boss and all this. And then I'm a little ways in before I even like decide to pick like what does the dad's job do? And then it needed to be there for like something I was about to say in the story. So it's like, what job would work well for this whole thing that I've described so far?
right. I've also done things like that, even with my most recent book that I'm currently like working on. I clearly had set up that there's like this crazy thing happening in the background of the story. And in my head, I had kind of figured out who like the bad guy was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have like their motive yet. And I was getting to like a part like in the story where I'm like, okay, I really need their motive or I can't continue forward because like why are they doing this?
Yes.
There has to be a motive.
Yes.
And
My daughter picked my bad guy, so because fairy tale based. So my daughter picked the fairy tale villain we're gonna go with
Oh, I
for
love
the
that.
series.
Ah, that's so
She's
amazing.
like, I'm like explaining it to her and my husband, and she's like, "What about this one?" And I'm like, "That would be great, but it's like one I won't reveal who it actually is until like
Yeah,
several books into
same,
the series."
same.
You'll
Like,
get
I'm
like
not gonna
the creepy cackly laugh or something. Like it'll be like glimpses until it needs to be revealed who it
right?
is. Like,
Well, even after I reveal who, like, the bad guy is in the book, another, like, bad guy ends up, like, being, like, the bad guy, and,
yeah,
you
the
don't
big
see that
bad.
the big bad. You don't see that coming kind of till, like, way farther on, and then I still do, like, crazy things. I just made my, alpha reader cry, and and I was like, I'm sorry?" She's like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "No, I'm not."
That is, I did my job correctly. We're good.
Exactly. I guess her kids came into, like, the room and they're like, "Are you okay?
Oh
Are you crying?" And she's
no! Well,
like,
that's
"Leave me
like,
alone."
so I left chapter 2, like I said, off on a cliffhanger of like, and then I, opened the journal up or whatever, and like the exact reaction that I wanted was, "What's in the journal?" That's exactly what my best friend said, and I'm like, "We got it." Like,
Well, that was, like, so Summer Dreams that just released 2 days ago, is a little bit more suspenseful than the rest of the books in the Sultry Summer series, and like I said, my alphas get the book
mm-hmm.
chapter by chapter. So, at the end of one chapter, they're just like, "Oh my goodness, this is the biggest cliffhanger ever." And then I got sick. So then they had to
Oh no!
wait 3 days to get anything else because I was, like, just
See, mine are
dying in
waiting
bed.
like a week or two for chapters, so like a few days.
Well, they normally, like, when I'm actively writing, get at least 1 to 2 to sometimes more chapters a day. So
Okay, so
for
that's a
them, a
lot.
few days there and especially, like, leaving them on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. They're
And
like, "Was this the end of the book?"
I'm not an author who writes cliffhangers in my books because 'cause they're all interconnected standalones. Every book that I have written has a happily ever after, all of
Mhm.
them. But, like, the joy that I got from, like, leaving them on a cliffhanger, like, my alpha readers, I was like, "Maybe one day I will write a series with a cliffhanger."
I will get into thriller and suspense just for one series.
Or, like, dark, right? Like, dark romance.
Oh, yeah. I like, my relationship is definitely not dark romance, but I do like me a good dark romance, like
Right? Who doesn't? Like, I love a good dark romance. I mean, I only have one written, and I don't know if I will go back into writing dark, but I definitely am kind of going, like, into slightly more suspenseful, just to give people a little bit more thrills, and it's been super fun writing
Well, and
it.
it helps to keep them reading too if there's, like, something that they're trying to figure out, that's
Yes.
helps move the story forward as well, so
Exactly, and it's been super fun to write, like, I kind of have loved the suspense aspects in the last 3 books that I've written, and I'm just trying to, like, find, like, I guess my happy place again because the Sultry Summer series, like, at least the first 3 books in it, um we're a lot more, like, light and fluffy with still a lot of spice. Like, don't get me wrong, this is not a sweet romance. None of my books are closed door. You are getting full spice. But they were, like, lighter and fluffier. And then, well, the first 2 are extremely, like, light, fluffy, super spicy. But I would say, like, not a lot of super angst or super, like, crazy things happening.
Mhm.
Summer Memories, I like it was definitely, like, a lot more emotional, a lot, like, more angsty, and then Summer Dreams was angsty and suspenseful and kinda crazy, and I think people are gonna be like, "What?" But I also think they're gonna really love it. I'm slightly concerned, though, that people are gonna start with Summer Dreams and then go to read Long Summer Nights and be like, wow, this is like
I mean, you have to have that if they're interconnected. You have to have like they can't all be the same relationship. You have to change
no.
it up. Like they're all different people. Some people are more angsty than
Yes.
others.
Exactly, and I think that that was my goal in this series too. Also writing a small town that people would, like, actually kinda wanna live in was, like, my goal with that series as
Mm,
well. Like, yeah, there's, a few people who are, like, bigots and, jerks and homophobes, because that's life. But the core people and, like, the core people that we follow in this story, they're just, like, super loving and super accepting, and they don't care who you are or who you love or what color your skin is. And, just people I would wanna be friends with because that's kinda who
mhm.
I am. Like,
Yeah.
I don't judge you based on, any of those things. I will, however, judge, if you don't put your shopping cart away, uh, or if you don't, like, tip at a restaurant. Like, those are the things I'm judging on.
Okay, if you don't tip at a restaurant, that just tells me you've never worked in a service job before. Because, like, I have to say, and I was a kid when I worked in my first service job. I mean, I was like 18 or 19 when I started, um, which I consider a kid. Technically, I was an adult, but like,
Well,
you have so much
you're
more
still
of
a
an
kid.
appreciation for it if you have worked in a service related job before.
Yeah.
Other ones, I'm just like, oof, like anytime we go anywhere now, well, at that time, it's not like I'd been a whole lot of places by myself at 19, but nowadays, like me and my husband is still in a service job. We tip everywhere we go
Yeah.
because it's like, we've experienced that our job relying on, our livelihood relying on tips. So
Yeah.
it's,
No,
and I tell my
100%.
daughter that too. I'm like, she's 8 right now, but I'm like,
Mhm.
I think it's important that you work in, my husband worked in a grocery store for a long time. He's worked in food for a long time now. And I'm like, I think it's important that everyone should work in one of those 2 locations at some
Yeah.
time in their life. Some grocery
Mhm.
doesn't have to be for a long time, but long enough to where you experience what a service related job is like. So you're a
Yeah,
decent human being towards other service people.
100%. I'm, like, a big advocate that, like, when my kids, even now, I mean, my kids are 7 and 5, soon to be 6 and 8. Ugh, but, they need to stop growing, but,
Yes.
um, I'm pretty big on, like, teaching them that they have to work for things, that, like,
Mhm.
nothing is free. So when they become, teenagers or whatever, and they want, like, something expensive, it's like, okay, well, then you're gonna need to get a job because you're gonna have to pay for it. Or, you can do extra jobs around the house, not
Yeah.
including what you have to do just because you live here and you are supporting the house. Like, there are
Yeah,
also
so
things.
we do an allowance. So, like, we do not pay for anything for her other than, like, clothes and food. Like, we pay
Right.
for those, but if you want, like, a game or if you want a toy or if you want, like, something else beyond, like, a birthday or Christmas time,
Yeah.
you have to pay for those out of your allowance. So she has, like, her, like, things she has to get done, and she earns, like, so much a day if she's, like, done those things. We have a calendar up with, like, where I check mark or cross it off if she, like, didn't clean her room that day or whatever.
Right.
And so, like, she'll be like which I saw that idea on TikTok, by the way, and she was like, "Oh, that's such a good idea," and then, like, literally the next month, we started doing it, and she was like, "I hate this. Can we go back
Yeah.
to where, like, I just got free money?" And I'm like, "Well, no, because the house was a disaster." So
Well, that's kinda something we similar. So, we have certain things that they have to do just because they live here. They don't get
Mhm.
paid for it. So, putting their clothes in their laundry hamper, keeping the room tidy. But then there's, like, certain things that they can do around the house to earn money, or for a while, it was to color a box because, they were working up to buy a Nintendo Switch.
Mm.
So each box was worth, like, I think $5. So it was like, okay, they were like, What can I do to earn a box today?" And I was like, "Okay, what do I think would be worth, like, $5?" Right? Like,
Right.
or if I picked, like, a really big thing, I'd be like, "You can color 2 or 3 boxes," right? Like,
Right.
just kinda trying to keep it fairly fair. And it worked really well, and I think, like, it helped teach them that, like, it wasn't for free. We do occasionally buy, like, certain things, maybe, like, for the family, that, like, we buy, like, amusement park passes for the year,
Mhm.
um, those kinds of things, but then we also tell them, like, or remind them, I guess, "You're lucky to have something like this, and, don't
Yeah.
brag about this because not everybody can afford this. Heck, we can barely afford it." We just like to
Yeah.
we're more experienced people than, like, physical, like, items, so we like to
Yeah.
do things with our kids, which is why we've done, like, those passes and stuff for the year.
Mhm.
But, yeah, it's like kids need to know the value of a dollar. And because I think some kids are never taught that. And I hope to teach my kids that. And they'll probably work at a grocery store because that's usually where most kids in our town work, like
Yeah.
either, you know, Walmart or a lot of times like Sobeys is our grocery store here. So they'll work there and, either run a till or bag some groceries.
Yeah. Or work in a restaurant doing the dishes or,
Yeah,
like, waiting tables, yeah. It's
exactly.
there's always something, and that also, like, the fact that you're, like, an author, like, in ours too, I'm like, in my house, it was like or, like, growing up, it was like, you need to go to college for whatever purpose. Well, I dropped out after a year and a half, so I didn't get a degree. So I'm like, I don't care if you go to college, but, like, whatever job it is that you wanna do, if that requires college, you have to go to college.
Yeah,
Like, if you wanna, I don't know, I have no idea. If you wanna be a vet, you have to go to school to be a vet. You can't just,
yeah,
like, be a vet.
no,
So, like, it's like, if you decide that you don't wanna go to school, like, I am still paying on my student loans 10 years later. I'm like, I would not, like, no,
no.
don't don't do it
Yeah,
just because.
yeah, I'm the same way, like, if, like, say you wanna be a doctor, then obviously you gotta go to school,
A lot of
and,
school, a lot of
a lot
school.
of school, and, the money that we have been putting away for our kids probably is not gonna pay for all of that,
Mhm.
but, so we'll pay a bit, but the rest you're gonna have to get loans for probably if you're gonna be a doctor,
Yeah.
but but, like, other things, like, yeah, if, like, you have to go to school for, like, what you want, and that's really what you want, then do it. But if you don't know what you wanna be, don't go to school just 'cause. Like, I'm I've
Or you
seen
could
so
go
many.
to, like, community college and spend a whole
Yeah,
lot less money while you think about it.
yeah, but, like, even, like, taking, like, a gap year to figure out what you need and, like, saving up
Mhm.
more money or whatever, that's great. I never went to college. I did take some courses to do, like, a few things, like, I'm a certified makeup artist, but I'm also no longer doing that, so, I mean
You write books now, so
I write books now. I'm also a certified event planner. I've never planned an event, except, like,
that
birthday parties,
that would
'cause
help you with, like, book events, though, I would
I
think.
that's if I ever get to book events. I mean, I could plan my own, but then, like, who's gonna come to these? And I also realized after I did it, I don't really like planning events. I thought I did. I
See,
don't.
I went to school for high school English deaf student education, and I'm like, I would have gone crazy teaching high school students. Why on earth did I do that?
I
I don't know.
wanted to go to school to be a teacher, but I learned in high school because I did, like, work experience
Mhm.
in a classroom, and I learned real quick that, I don't think I could be a teacher.
Alright, well, thank you so much for your time today, and have a
Yes,
good
thank you.
rest of your Saturday. I gotta go get some lunch really quick, so
Yes, have a good day.
you have a good day too. Bye.
Bye.
Laura liked Little Red Riding Hood growing up, and still likes it today. Little Red Riding Hood is a European fairy tale about a young girl and a sly wolf. Its origins can be traced back to several pre 17th century European folk tales. The two best known versions were written by Charles Perrault and the brothers Grimm. The story has been changed considerably in various retellings and subjected to numerous modern adaptations and readings. Other names for the story are Little Redcap, or simply Red Riding Hood. It is number 333 in the Arn-Thompson classification system for folk tales. Today we'll be reading The Wolf and the Seven Little Kids, another Grimm fairy tale. Don't forget we're reading Les Morts d'Arthur, the story of King Arthur and of his noble knights of the Round Table on our Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes. The Wolf and the Seven Little Kids. There was once upon a time an old goat who had 7 little kids, and loved them with all the love of a mother for her children. One day she wanted to go into the forest and fetch some food, so she called all 7 to her and said, "Dear children, I have to go into the forest. Be on your guard against the wolf. If he comes in, he will devour you all, skin, hair, and everything. The wretch often disguises himself, but you'll know him at once by his rough voice and his black feet." The kids said, "Dear mother, we will take good care of ourselves. You may go away without any anxiety." Then the old one bleated and went on her way with an easy mind. It was not long before someone knocked at the house door and called, "Open the door, dear children. Your mother is here and has brought something back with her for each of you." But the little kids knew that it was the wolf by the rough voice. "We will not open the door," cried they. "You are not our mother. She has a soft, pleasant voice, but your voice is rough. You are the wolf." Then the wolf went away to a shopkeeper and bought himself a great lump of chalk, ate this and made his voice soft with it. Then he came back, knocked at the door of the house and called, "Open the door, dear, dear children. Your mother is here and has brought something back with her for each of you." But the wolf had laid his black paws against the window, and the children saw them and cried, "We will not open the door. Our mother has not black feet like you. You are the wolf." Then the wolf ran to a baker and said, "I have hurt my feet. Rub some dough over them for me." And when the baker had rubbed his feet over, he ran to the miller and said, "Strew some white meal over my feet for me." The miller thought to himself, "The wolf wants to deceive someone," and refused. But the wolf said, "If you will not do it, I will devour you." Then the miller was afraid and made his paws white for him. Truly, this is the way of mankind. So now the wretch went for the 3rd time to the house door, knocked at it and said, "Open the door for me, children. Your dear little mother has come home and has brought every one of you something back from the forest with her." The little kids cried, "First show us your paws that we may know you are our dear little mother." Then he put his paws in through the window, and when the kids saw that they were white, they believed that all he said was true and opened the door. But who should come in but the wolf? They were terrified and wanted to hide themselves. One sprang under the table, the second into the bed, the third into the stove, the fourth into the kitchen, the fifth into the cupboard, the sixth under the washing bowl, and the 7th into the clock case. But the wolf found them all and used no great ceremony. One after the other, he swallowed them down his throat. The youngest, who was in the clock case, was the only one he did not find. When the wolf had satisfied his appetite, he took himself off, laid himself down under a tree in the green meadow outside, and began to sleep. Soon afterwards, the old goat came home again from the forest. Oh, what a sight she saw there! The house door stood wide open. The table, chairs, and benches were thrown down. The washing bowl lay broken to pieces, and the quilts and pillows were pulled off the bed. She sought her children, but they were nowhere to be found. She called them one after another by name, but no one answered. At last, when she came to the youngest, a soft voice cried, "Dear mother, I'm in the clock case." She took the kid out, and it told her that the wolf had come and eaten all the others. Then you may imagine how she wept over her poor children. At length, in her grief, she went out, and the youngest kid ran with her. When they came to the meadow, there lay the wolf by the tree and snored so loud that the branches shook. She looked at him on every side and saw that something was moving and struggling in his gorged belly. "Ah, heavens," she said, Is it possible that my poor children, whom he has swallowed down for his supper, can still be alive? Then the kid had to run home and fetch scissors and a needle and thread, and the goat cut open the monster's stomach, and hardly had she made one cut, then one little kid thrust its head out. And when she had cut farther, all 6 sprang out one after another, and were all still alive and had suffered no injury whatever. For in his greediness the monster had swallowed them down whole. What rejoicing there was! They embraced their dear mother and jumped like a tailor at his wedding. The mother, however, said, "Now go and look for some big stones, and we will fill the wicked beast's stomach with them while he's still asleep." Then the 7 kids dragged the stones thither with all speed and put as many of them into his stomach as they could get in. And the mother sewed him up again in the greatest haste, so that he was not aware of anything and never once stirred. When the wolf at length had had his fill of sleep, he got on his legs, and as the stones in his stomach made him very thirsty, he wanted to go to a well to drink. But when he began to walk and to move about, the stones in his stomach knocked against each other and rattled. Then cried he, "What rumbles and tumbles against my poor bones? I thought 'twas 6 kids, but it feels like big stones." And when he got to the well and stooped over the water to drink, the heavy stones made him fall in, and he drowned miserably. When the 7 kids saw that, they came running to the spot and cried aloud, "The wolf is dead! The wolf is dead!" and danced for joy round about the well with their mother. Thank you for joining Freya's Fairy Tales. Be sure to come back next week for Morgan's journey to holding her own fairy tale in her hands, and to hear one of her favorite fairy tales.